When you hear the word Christianity, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's probably one single image. But the truth is, it's this huge, sprawling, and really complex family with literally thousands of different traditions. So how on earth did one of the world's biggest faiths get such a diverse and complicated family tree? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
Okay, get ready for this. According to some scholars, there are an estimated 45,000 distinct Christian denominations in the world. Yeah, 45,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. Now, sure, a lot of those are small local churches, but that number is just staggering. It's a kind of diversity that critics love to point to as a weakness, but you'll find plenty of people inside the faith who see it as a real strength.
So that massive number brings up the million-dollar question, right? How did a movement that started with just a handful of followers 2,000 years ago branch out into tens of thousands of different forms? That's the puzzle we're going to try and piece together today.
And to do that, the best way to wrap our heads around it is to think of it like a giant family tree. We're going to trace the story from its common trunk, follow it through its first huge splits, and then look at all the sprawling branches we see around us today.
All right, so our story really kicks off with the very first great split in the Christian family. This was a moment in time that would literally split the Christian world in two, creating a divide between East and West that, still exists today.
For the first 1,000 years or so, the church was, well, let's just say it was more or less one big united family. But in the year 1054, after a long, slow period of cultural drift and simmering arguments, something finally snapped. That moment is known as the Great Schism, and it created the first two major branches of our Christian family tree.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute core of the problem. Who's in charge? In the West, the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, claimed he had authority over all Christians everywhere. But the leaders in the East, they were like, no way. This power struggle, mixed in with some growing theological disagreements, led them to formally excommunicate each other, basically telling each other, you're out, you're not part of the true church anymore.
But hey, it wasn't just a power struggle. The East, which became the Eastern Orthodox Church, was really holding on to its ancient Greek roots. This meant a deep reverence for icons, these beautiful sacred images, and this incredible theological idea called theosis. Now what's that? It's the belief that the whole point of life is to grow closer and closer to God through faith and prayer, so much so that you can actually begin to share in the divine nature. For the Orthodox, this isn't some minor detail. It's the entire goal of being a Christian.
So where did this branch of the family tree really take root and flourish? This shows you its modern footprint perfectly. Today, Eastern Orthodoxy is the main tradition you'll find in places like Russia, Greece, and a huge chunk of Eastern Europe, carrying forward those ancient traditions we were just talking about. Okay, let's jump forward about 500 years. The family tree is about to get another massive split, but this time the break happens inside that Western Roman Catholic branch. And believe it or not, it all gets kicked off by the protest of a single German monk.
The year is 1517. The monk's name is Martin Luther. He famously nails a list of 95 complaints to a church door, and he's especially angry about the sale of something called indulgences. So what were they? Basically, you could pay money to the church, and they said it would get you or your loved ones out of purgatory faster. But Luther's real beef went deeper. He argued that the church had buried the simple truth of the gospel under centuries of human rules and traditions. And these ideas, they landed at just the right time in the Europe that was getting really tired of the church's immense power.
Luther's whole protest was built on two revolutionary ideas. The first was sola scriptura, which is Latin for scripture alone. He argued that the Bible, and only the Bible, was the ultimate final authority for a Christian. Not the Pope, not a church council, just Scripture. I mean, think about it. That one idea completely challenged the entire power structure of the Roman Catholic Church.
And his second big idea was sola fide, or faith alone. Luther said that salvation isn't something you can earn by doing good deeds or going through church rituals. Nope. He said it was a free gift from God, and all you had to do was receive it through your own personal faith. Suddenly, the focus shifted from the institution of the church to the individual's direct relationship with God.
And these two ideas, man, they didn't just create one new branch. It was like a bomb went off. The Protestant Reformation, which is what it came to be called, led to this explosion of new movements. First, you had the Lutherans, the Calvinists, the Anglicans, and then from them, hundreds and eventually thousands of other denominations sprouted up, like the Baptists, Methodists, and Pentecostals that are so common today. Okay, so let's take a breath. We've got our main trunk, and now we have these three huge branches, Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant. So how about we do a quick side-by-side to see how they all stack up today?
This table does a great job of laying it all out, and you can see a really clear pattern, right? Look at authority. Catholicism has that top-down hierarchy with the Pope. Orthodoxy is led by a council of leaders, or patriarchs, and Protestantism, it totally decentralizes authority down to the scripture itself. And that one core difference in who or what has the final say really influences everything else, from how they worship to how they read the Bible.
And here's a fascinating fact. Even after all these historic splits, that original Roman Catholic branch is still the single largest Christian body in the world, with over 1 billion members today. Okay, so we've talked a lot about splits and disagreements. And you might be thinking, these groups have absolutely nothing in common anymore. But that's not the whole story. Let's go all the way back to the trunk of our family tree and look at the deep roots that they all still share. But here's the thing. Even with all the passionate arguments over centuries, the vast majority of Christians today are still unified by this incredible shared core of beliefs. This common foundation includes belief in the Trinity, the idea that Jesus was God in human form, the resurrection, and the authority of the Bible. These are the deep, strong roots that hold the entire messy, sprawling family tree together.
And all of this leaves us with a big question to chew on. When you look at this huge, complex, and let's be honest, sometimes conflicted family tree, is all this diversity a sign of weakness, like the critics say? Or could it actually be a sign of strength, a sign of this unstoppable desire of people across all kinds of cultures and centuries to go back to the source for themselves and ask, what does this all really mean? It's definitely something to think about.